Hey, if your truck is running rough at idle and you've checked everything and there's no vacuum leaks and even went as far as tuning it up and changing the plug wires and stuff like that, but suddenly it's really running bad, particularly at idle, it might even stall on you, and it might even occasionally backfire on startup. Chances are good that you have a fuel pressure problem. And there's a fuel pressure regulator on the side of your fuel injector box underneath the intake. Well, you'll see where it is, but you have to take the intake manifold off to get to it. And I'll show you what it looks like here. I'm going to show you in some crude drawings the actual function of this gizmo. Yeah, it looks like a little crack pipe. It has a screen on it. Chances are pretty fair that this screen could be clogged up and there's nothing actually wrong with the regulator itself, but since you've come this far and taken the manifold off, you might as well go ahead and replace this. So I would go get the car tested and diagnosed, and if he tells you you have a fuel pressure regulator problem, you're probably looking between $300 and $400, depending on how reasonable your mechanic is. And pretty much all of that is labor. This gizmo will cost you anywhere between $30 and $50 at your local parts store. You can get them cheaper, if you can deal with waiting. Sorry, guys. If you can deal with waiting, and you want to get a cheaper price. If you're really hurting on money, you can go to eBay or whatever and probably get one for as low as $15 or $20. But it's a big job, and that's why the mechanic. Well, it's not. You're not pulling an engine or anything, but there's a lot to it. It's gonna take a competent mechanic a little while to get to. And then you have to put it all together. There's a lot of wires to disconnect. The throttle linkage you have to disconnect. You don't have to take the carburetor off. You can just lift that up with the manifold. And sometimes you don't even have to take the manifold all the way off. Sometimes you can just lift it up and prop it up a couple inches, and you can get right to it. It's just sitting right there on the side of your fuel injector box. So you could save yourself anywhere from $300 to $350 if you decide to do it yourself and tackle it. I think it's worth it. You'll learn a lot when you're underneath the hood and going through all this, and you'll see all your hoses and where everything's going and how everything links up and how everything works together. So to me, it's worth it. And if you're running low on money, if you don't have a lot of money, and you have an afternoon or maybe even a whole day, if this is your first time doing this, I would budget the whole day to take care of it. But anyway, we're going to get to it. First, I'm going to show you exactly what this thing does. And then you'll understand why your car might, number one, be using a ton more gas than it's supposed to be using. And number two, just really running rough, especially at idle. And there's a reason that it's running rough at idle and running okay when you push the gas. You'll see. You'll figure it all out. Let's get to it. Alright, real quick. Here's your engine. We'll call this an engine. Okay? That's your engine. Underneath the car is your gas tank. It's a big old gas tank. And inside the gas tank we have a fuel pump. Alright? You have a line coming out of your fuel pump and pumping gas up to the top of your engine. My pen is running out of ink. Here's where it hits the fuel injector, and that squirts injected fuel into the engine. Okay? Right after that, you have a fuel pressure regulator. This opens and closes, okay? And then there's a line after that going back into the fuel tank and dumping excess gas that you don't need back into the fuel tank. So if you're sitting there at idle, this is open. It's all the way up here, and it's allowing gas to flow back into the gas tank because you don't need it. So this is open and allowing gas to go back into the gas tank. Okay, then when you press the gas, this thing closes. And it closes off the flow back to your gas tank because you need that gas to accelerate the car. Alright? So if this fuel pressure regulator is broken, there's never any gas going back into the gas tank. So even when you're idling, gas is constantly flowing into the engine. So when you're sitting there at idle, you're basically flooding the engine. And that's why it's having trouble idling and bucking and shaking and everything else. It's probably fine when you accelerate because you need that gas. But when you're just sitting there at a stop sign or traffic light, you don't need all that gas, although gas is pouring in to the engine. And this is why you're using so much gas. And this is why it's running horrible at idle. It might even stall. It might even shut down. It might even backfire when you go to start it back up because all that excess gas is in the engine. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go fix it. Let's do it. I want to show you exactly how to do it and get away with this. A $300 to $400 job for, at the most, $50. You can probably get a fuel pressure regulator cheaper. But I would bank on $50. Alright, the first thing we need to do is take off this whole air channel. And it's simple enough. Take the lid off. That's it. Disconnect two wires on this. One. Supposed to be a bitch. Two. A little trick to taking this box off. I'll show you here in a minute. Pull it from the back, tilt it up like that. And the whole unit will come off. Now we're on the passenger side. Now we're going to start right here, I guess. What would that be? 7 o'clock position, and just work our way around clockwise until everything is disconnected from the manifold. We're going to start with the throttle body right here. So open it up all the way. It just slips off and on. we have the throttle cables and the bracket disconnected, and now working on that and that, getting those disconnected. The hose goes under there. You're gonna need a long socket to get out of that bolt and get to that nut, unless you want to maneuver a wrench in there. There's one in back too. It's easier if you can get your hands on a long socket, and if you can't, just do what you can do. Again, it's 10 millimeters. So I'm just going to leave this hang right here. I mean, we're just getting it out of the way. We can get to the intake manifold. Yeah, these things are plastic nowadays. If you guys are old school like me, it's crazy to see a plastic intake manifold, but that's what we have. Right here, here's your injector box, your fuel injector box, and we'll take this lid off. And your fuel pressure regulator is right there, right where that hump is, and that's what we have to get to. And the only way to get to it is pull the whole intake manifold up. At least get it out of the way. I don't think we're gonna have to take it all the way out, but we might. I don't know. We'll see what happens when we get to it. So, alright, we'll be right back to take these off, and we'll keep on working clockwise all the way around. And yeah, we have to take the distributor cap off too. We don't have to unconnect any wires from the distributor cap, but we do have to take the cap off and get it out of the way. The bottom of this thing has a little, can you see this? Little O-ring down there, so it kind of plunges into there. So you're going to have to yank it out a little bit. Check that O-ring for any kind of cracks or wear. Just set this puppy aside. Alright, here's your coil and the control module. And we're going to disconnect the wires and just kind of leave it hang by the bracket down here at the side. Get it out of the way and get access to the rest of the manifold bolts. Alright, so let's get on that wrap now. Lifesaver. And you can take that coil wire off if you want, but I think a better idea is, well, let's just take it off for God's sake. That was not easy to get off. It's kind of hard to get to those bolts. This bracket here, which we had to move out of the way to get to the coil nuts, bolts, whatever, is connected back here, and I'm hoping there's actually two bolts holding it. See, it goes up and around in a big U, and I'm hoping we don't have to take this off. We might have to. You guys that smoke, go smoke a cigarette and come back to work on it, because now we're going to get a little bit of gas flying around. We're going to loosen up. This is where you test your fuel pressure. And we're going to take a screwdriver and let any pressure out of the gas line. Alright, we're just going to stick it down there. Oh, there it goes. Just let the pressure out. So there'll be some fumes and maybe some gas flying out of there if you have a whole lot of pressure buildup. So you don't want to smoke. I'm not going to preach at you. But we're getting there, man. One step at a time. Right. Distributor cap is actually a T20. It's Star Torx driver. So I just took a regular socket, put the Torx driver into it, taped it to keep it from falling out. Now I'm using an extension. And 1/4-inch nut driver, socket wrench. And that should pull it right out of there. So yeah, this is a T20. That's Star driver thingy-majiggy. And you're basically just lifting the distributor cap up and out of the way. Just leave it sitting back there and it'll be fine. So now we're going to go to the other side of the car and unhook those gas send and return lines. That's where we are right here. I'll unhook you and show you close up. There's a retainer clip right there, so both of these nuts have to come out, and that retainer clip pops up and these gas lines should pull right out of there. That's what we're on now. And after that, I couldn't get this cap off with this line was pushing up against it or in its way or something. So once I get that out, I'll pull that cap up. These are an 8mm. Alright, the whole reason we loosened up that distributor cap was to get all these lines out of the way, and so we could get to the gas lines down there. See? That's where they connect, right behind that little bracket there. And these are 16mm, and it's best to use a flare nut wrench. Of course, we don't have one, so we're using a regular 16mm wrench. Close to this firewall, there's two gas lines that come up. Trying to give you some kind of perspective. Can you see these? Alright, there you go. I should have got all these wires and hoses out of the damn way. On the back of that, there's a big, like 20mm bolt that's actually like part of the line. And then in back of that, there's, come on, focus. Do my rap, baby. These puppies here. Don't worry about dropping these. The line bends and it'll stop it right there. So that's what you're trying to unconnect right there. And just leave those hanging against the firewall back here. And that's where we are. That bracket is connected. I just don't exactly know where right now until we start poking around down there, but we'll find it. I'll be right back. Remember the crude diagram I drew? Yeah, that's what it is. One coming up to the injectors, one going back to the gas tank. Let's put that cap back on now. The bolt holding down these gas line brackets are between both lines, straight down here where the ratchet's going. Just take your finger and feel around down there between those two lines, and you'll feel it. It's a 10 millimeter. Just loosen that up. And these lines, once you get that loose, I already have this loose. Once you have that loose, these lines should just pull right out of here. If you have trouble getting them out, just pry them out with a big screwdriver or whatever. Alright, once you get that bracket off, pull these out. And that comes off as one assembly, and just weasel that out of there. In here, there's, this is hard to do one-handed, little plastic bushings. And if they come out with the lines, just take them off with the lines and just press them back down in there any which way, and they'll stick. So now just, guys, this is hard to do one-handed. You just maneuver these out of here and get them out of your way. This injector box has a clip on both ends, right there, and these can be a bitch to pull out because they get hot and they sort of semi-melt together. I wish I could just reach down there and pull that fuel pressure regulator out of there, but believe it or not, you gotta take the whole damn manifold off around this. This stays in the engine, and the manifold lifts off around it. Yeah. So we're gonna take this line off and this off. There's a couple other things you have to take off, and then we have to loosen up all the manifold bolts and pull this puppy out of there. We're still looking in from the driver's side. This hose down here. There, connecting to the manifold. You'll need a pair of pliers to squeeze that clamp together and pull that hose out of there. I didn't really want to do this, but it looks like we're going to have to take this radiator hose off. I just pull this out of the way, and that'll give us a lot more room to see what's going on. Wow. I just changed this radiator out. This is a brand new radiator. And there's a lot of rust going on in there. So I'm going to have to flush this out again. I thought I took care of this problem, but apparently I didn't. Not sure where all that's coming from, but it does not look good. That'll be my next job. Little round wire right here. Now we don't want to pull this manifold off in this harness out of the way and yank this wire out, so we're going to have to take this nut off and just so we can pull this harness out of the way. We don't want to be breaking any wires. There's one more hiding all the way back, the back of the manifold by the distributor cap. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. You might be able to catch a glimpse of it right there if this camera focuses. Right down there. And that should be it. All the manifold nuts and bolts and everything is disconnected, and all we have to do is kind of jar it loose. These things can stick because they're just plastic, and they do heat up and they do kind of melt onto the engine. So let's see if we can get that last nut out and wiggle this loose. Back on the passenger side. There it is. Alright, my concern is with this O-ring. Appears to be stretched out a little too much. There's a lot of grime in there. This thing's got to be replaced. This one's all flimsy, bent out of shape. This one's a little bit thicker and much more rigid. This better. This regulator, just pry the tops of these off and pull this clip down, and it just presses in there. Just pull it out, and make sure the O-ring and the filter doesn't come out, or doesn't stay in there with it. If it does, we're going to have to stick something in there and pull it out. That O-ring fits nicely. I don't know how the other one got all bent out of shape. Well, see, it stayed in there, so we got to get something in there and pull it out. O-ring came out and the filter came out. Oh shit. It's safe to use the old manifold gasket. They're made to last. And there's no pressure up under there, so. I got it all cleaned out as best as I could. And now we're ready to put it all back together. And the hardest part's going to be getting the manifold back down flush. So you're going to have to use a little bit of force back here in the middle. That was not easy to get flush. It would make sense to start on the rear bolt on the manifold all the way back by the distributor. Now from that point, to put the gas lines back on, and then to reinstall the distributor cap. And the reason is because we have all this room to work back there. distributor is a little bit easier to see from the driver's side. At least the front one is. the hardest part of this job is getting the fuel injector box up through the manifold. I played hell on that. And you don't want to tighten it down into place. I mean, you can do that, but you're taking a big chance because that intake manifold is just cheap ass plastic and it will crack. So I don't recommend that you do that. It is tempting to do it though, because I really had to wrestle with it. It was like something was out of place, and I knew it was in place. It could only go in one way, and you can see it sealing up as you're pushing it on. Just a pain, man. It was a royal pain in the butt. So I got plenty of power. I'm going home, put all these clips together, edit this video, and get it uploaded for you guys. I know I'm not the only one dealing with this. In fact, there's probably a lot of people dealing with it, and they don't even know they're dealing with it. Yeah, there's a difference here, man. It's good. All right, this needs to be addressed. Did you get it? I hope you got it. I really do. After 50 or 100 miles, you want to retorque the intake bolts, and I know nobody's going to do this, and nobody wants to do this, but they do loosen up because the vacuum of the engine kind of sucks the manifold down, and it kind of loosens up the bolts. So just take another 15 minutes and retorque those down. And you guys, listen, I'm a pool player. I know what it's like to go out on the road and to be stuck on the highway with no money and no help, and not a human being in the world that gives a shit about you. So if I just saved you $300, whether you had it or you didn't have it, then I've done my job here, and I vowed to reach back and to help people who were in situations like I was in. You can do this. You got this. It's a little bit tedious and a little bit aggravating, and there's going to be times when you want to throw the fucking wrench against the wall and just, cuss the whole damn thing out and walk away. But you can do this. You got this. I know it. I believe in you. Peace.